October 22nd, 2020. We're going to call this meeting to order at, I can check the time, at 18:09. Moving on to the land acknowledgement. The SMU acknowledges that McGill University is situated on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe Nations, a place which has long served as a site of meaning and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples. The SMU recognizes and respects these nations as traditional custodians of the land and water on which it is located. Moving on to item 3, attendance. We do have, I believe, one proxy this evening, but for all individuals proxying this evening, please indicate so when I get to that counselor's name, as well as spell your name out for the purpose of the minute and your personal pronouns if you choose to do so.
Sorry, Speaker, can I just interrupt you for a second? I believe the chat has to be disabled for this evening.
I believe, can any counselor, it's okay if you speak out of turn, can you tell if the chat's disabled?
Yeah, it's
excellent.
It's only for you and Wing.
Counselor Elzamar Club.
Present.
Counselor Lee, Dentistry.
Present.
Counselor Bullhose, Education.
Present.
Counselor Kirksu, Engineering.
Present.
Counselor Committee met, good evening everyone, the steering committee met on October 16th, 2020 at 3:30 p.m. EST via Zoom. All were present at this meeting. There were no guest speakers. For new business this evening, we have one. We have the motion regarding nominations to the Society's Board of Directors 2010-22. There's no business arising this evening. We'll also just note, I'll interrupt, we'll note the arrival of the Francophone Affairs representative at 18:17 at this time. Presentations, we do have 2 presentations this evening. We will first have one from the McGill Office of Sustainability, followed by one from UCRU. Just please ensure that you remain respectful towards the presenters at all times. Steering Committee Innovation, given that we have quite a few members of the gallery this evening, as well as the fact that I always wish to ensure that Legislative Council remains a safe and productive space, we're going to remind parliamentarian, I'm just going to interrupt. Can you please add editing access to the counselors on the speaking list? Only because I've just gotten a notification. Lastly, thank you very much. Lastly, there will be no confidential session this evening. With that concludes my report. So are there any questions on the report of the steering committee? Since the speaking list is in the process of being added, you all to have access, you can raise your hands if you have any questions at this time. All right, seeing no questions, we will proceed. And we will proceed with item 6, guest speakers. We have 2 guest speakers for this evening. We have item 6A, McGill Office of Sustainability, and a presentation for questions at this time. Both are expected to take 10 minutes. For both of the presenters, if you need extra time, though I will let you know when 10 minutes, a counselor will be more than willing to extend your time if necessary. But I will alert you when your 10 seconds is approaching. First off, we have the McGill Office of Sustainability. So Shauna, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Hey.
Is it possible to share my screen, please?
Yep.
Thank
Let
you.
me just grant you access.
Counselors, can you edit the document now?
I can.
Perfect.
Also, Speaker, is it okay if I attach Senator Daryanani's questions on the speaking list, or should I just make like another doc or something?
You can put it on the speaking list.
Perfect.
All right, Shauna, you should be able to. Let me know if you can't, and then I'll adjust the settings again.
I believe the other person needs to stop sharing their screen first.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Great. So can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me today. I have two screens, so if I'm looking at, I'm not like gazing out the window, I'm looking at you while speaking. So thank you very much for having me. My name is Shona Watt. I work at the Office of Sustainability, Moose, we like to call it. And in particular, I work at the Sustainability Projects Fund as the SPF steward. So raise your hand if you've ever heard of the Sustainability Projects Fund, the SPF. Couple people, great, awesome, love it. Great, so every year we present the annual report for the fiscal year. We presented to all three student societies. So last a week or two ago, I presented to MCSS and PGSS, and here I am speaking with you. So basically we go through the kind of the highlights of the year. Hopefully you know that the SPF builds a culture of sustainability across campuses of McGill through the development and seed funding of interdisciplinary projects. So it was created in 2010, and this year we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And so we have typically about $1 million a year in funding. And so through its history, we've allocated about $9 million in funding for projects related to sustainability on campus. And when we mean sustainability, we mean all three pillars of sustainability, so environmental, social, and economic. Some general things about the SPF is that as of this year, we have over 250 projects approved. We have three different streams. So we have a tiny stream, which is under $300, to the big wave, which is over $100,000. So any student can apply. They just need to be a current student. What's neat about the SPF is that it's funded half by students and half by the administration. So it allows for a ton of collaboration, which we really encourage. And so if you can be from any faculty or department to apply. And in general, we're looking really good for our finances. Typically every year we we allocate as much money as we are receiving, and we're definitely on trend for that. In total, over the fund, we've received over 470 applications, and this year we received 49 applications. We approved almost 70% of them, so that's really great. I mentioned we have a couple different streams. So we have tiny stream funding. So this is under $300. So we have this year we funded 15 of those projects. We have had 7 under 5,000 projects and 9 over $5,000 projects. This year we launched the SPF Big Wave. So these are for large scale transformative projects that have a long lasting impact on McGill's campuses. And so the stream can ask for between $100,000 and $400,000. And so one that might be particularly interesting to you as students is we have funded a feasibility study for the Solon Hall green roof. So they're going to see if it's possible to have plants on the roof because they needed to redo their roof anyway. I'll go through a couple of approved projects to give you some idea of what kinds of things we funded, and also can give you an idea of if you'd like to apply to the SPF. You can do so at any time. We definitely help you through the process. I'm here. I have a coworker named Steph. So I help people apply to the fund. If you have an idea or you want to start to have an idea and you're not quite sure what to do, you can contact me. You can find my email on the McGill Office of Sustainability website, and I help you through the process to hopefully be accepted by the fund. So a couple of projects under $300. We funded some reusable dishware, a climate change workshop series, McConnell plants in the McConnell building. Those are some SMU students who did that. We funded the SMU Environment Committee mug reuse program. Also Vélo Voltage, which is a stationary bicycle that can generate electricity. So there's lots of different things you can do, and it can be a great opportunity to meet other people and try out projects and learn professional skills as well. Some under $5,000 projects are microbiome. So that was at MAC. They did a workshop series on fermented food and drink. Two that you may have seen downtown at the light intersection was the Farmers Market, McGill Farmers Market equipment. So we helped them purchase equipment to keep them running last summer. And bringing the flat back on campus. So this was an awareness event that happened at the beginning of last year to encourage biking. Then we have quite a number of over $5,000 projects as well. So there's the MAC Regenerative Food Hub that helped connect the student projects, food-related projects out at MAC. I have the Walking Birds, which is encouraging people to stay active. Okay, we have quite a number of key impacts and outcomes as well. So I graduated from MAC campus in 2009, dating myself a little bit. But when I was a student, I was learning a lot about things in books and slideshows and lots of lectures, but I didn't actually have much hands-on opportunities. And so when I graduated, the SPF actually came to be. And so one of the things I love about the SPF is that we help to give students and among the rest of the McGill community really hands-on opportunities to learn, improve their knowledge of sustainability, and grow a lot. For many people, it's their first project that they're managing, so they learn about how to do a budget or how to recruit people, how to engage people in a project. So it can be a really transformative experience for students. You might wonder who are making these decisions about the fund. So another neat thing about the SPF is that it's half funded by students and half by the administration. And so that's represented in the governance council as well. So you have two SMU reps. We have Leah and Matthew. And there's one CSS rep and one PGSS rep for students. And then there's two academic staff and two windows out. And hopefully some of you saw our free houseplant giveaway around that time. So in just a couple hours, we engaged with hundreds of people, also pre-COVID, obviously. We gave out hundreds of plants to people, and we would definitely like to do this once we can do that again. So these are some of the main things that we've done this year. There are certainly ways that you can still apply to the fund, even if we're not on campus. There are things like we're working right now on expanding green labs, like including sustainability practices in laboratories. Some people are working on online resources or guides. So there's also event series that can happen. So there's still a lot of things that can happen, and there's lots of room for sustainability action on campus, even if we're not actually on campus. So I'm happy to take your questions or comments now.
All right, thank you very much, Shauna. Are there any questions on the report from the McGill Office of Sustainability? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Shauna, for coming to present to us this evening.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, moving on, we're now going to have a presentation from UCREW. So UCREW, Mackenzie, and if you have another co-presenter with you, you can, I believe you should have the ability to share your screen now, unless you want us to present, share it from our end. Okay, perfect.
Nope, I have the screen, and I also have Kristen here as well. She should be on the call.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, perfect. I can't see my screen anymore, but Kristen, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Then we can get started. Hello and good evening to everybody here from McGill. Quick introduction. My name is Mackenzie Metcalf. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Vice President of the University Students' Council at Western University, and I'm the Chair of Undergraduates of Canadian Research Intensive Universities.
All right, hi, my name is Kristen Smith. I'm the Vice President Advocacy at the University of Manitoba Students' Union, and I'm the Vice Chair here at UCRU.
I forgot to say I was also the chair of UCRU. So undergraduates of Canadian Research Intensive Universities, or as we're known, UCRU, is an informal coalition of student associations whose mandate is to advocate to the Canadian federal government for affordable, inclusive, and high caliber undergraduate university education with opportunities for increased access to undergraduate research. Our coalition began in 2015 to advocate on issues that disproportionately and uniquely affect undergraduates of Canadian U15 universities, which is what sets our strategic advocacy priorities apart from other student advocacy organizations at the federal level. We collectively represent over 250,000 university students across Canada. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of UCRU at a glance. So we currently have 9 members, but I'll add a little asterisk to that because we actually officially accepted the University of Ottawa as a member of UCRU today. So unfortunately, that is outdated since I made this slide 2 days ago. We officially have 10 members of UCRU. And here at McGill, you are a founding member of UCRU, one of the original schools who was included in this coalition. And we also have 5 leadership roles in the organization. So we have me, the chair, the vice chair, Kristen, the chair of the advocacy committee, the chair of the governance committee, as well as a social media manager. So next, we're going to go through the 9 schools here at UCRU. We have the AMS at UBC, the University of Manitoba Student Union, McMaster Student Union, the University of Saskatchewan, the University of Toronto Student Union, the Alma Mater Society at Queen's University, Western University Students' Council, the Student Society at McGill University, Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, and then today we added the undergraduates of the University of Ottawa. And I'm always surprised at how many different ways student associations can come up with saying their own names. So next, right, Kristen is going to do a little spotlight on our values.
Beautiful. So yeah, we sort of like to highlight our values in these presentations so everyone has a better idea of how we conduct our business. So first things first, we're aspirational in everything we seek to do, but we also strive to be pragmatic. So it's a very interesting balance that we try to meet in all our advocacy and policy, at least one policy focused on that topic, and then include a broader equity-based lens in all our policies and how we conduct ourselves as a board.
All right, and one other thing that we think is a really important value of UCRU is that we have an easy in, easy out principle. Right now, we are just an informal coalition of schools who meet every 2 weeks to talk about our advocacy and different things that happen on our campus, but we also plan an advocacy week every year. And every school comes because they see the value in the organization. We don't have anything formally holding us together, but we are in the process of formalizing, but we hope to hold these values true even when we have a more formal set of bylaws that kind of govern how we meet every couple weeks. Okay, and so this is a little bit of how we do our advocacy here at UCRU and some of the strategies that we take to advocate for students across Canada and specifically students at McGill as well. Every year we plan a lobby week where we go and we do 70+ meetings with MPs in Ottawa. Below we have a picture with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. We talk about our 4 priorities that we have identified each year, which we'll go into later. We also have nationwide campaigns, so watch out on the SSMU social media. We have a campaign called Debt Free Degree launching on November 1st. That's going to be highlighting some of our student financial aid asks. We do in-person meetings with politicians and staffers, like in the picture. Unfortunately, this year they will be online, but we're hoping they'll be just as effective. And to each of these meetings, we bring a research brief, which you can see in the hand of one of the photos there. And these are what basically well costed out and research asks that we have that we bring to leave with each of the MPs that we have meetings with. We also help hold and cultivate relationships with staffers, which are the people who are around, like to advocate for Indigenous students. This is a great opportunity at the federal level of government to be able to highlight the concerns of Indigenous students from specific communities as well as from across Canada. We specifically have advocated on increasing monetary amounts for the PSSSP as well as recommendations for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Secondly, we advocate a lot on student financial aid. Specifically this year, we're asking for a 2-year grace period on all Canada student loans, as well as an increase in Canada student grants from 2019 levels. We also like to advocate for international students at the federal level of government. So specifically this year, we're asking for increased work integrated learning opportunities for international students. And we also advocated for international students to be allowed back into their country to continue their studies in person due to COVID-19. We also asked for money for work integrated learning opportunities, specifically with Canada Student Jobs and the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy. We've done a lot of advocacy around COVID-19 with the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, as well as surveys that we released gathering information when COVID first hit in March so that we could inform the advocacy we did to the government. And finally, because we are U15 universities, we like to focus on undergraduate research. So this year we're focusing on expanding the NSERC research asks to undergraduates in social science and arts and humanities.
So when we look at ourselves, Mackenzie sort of mentioned that we're not formal yet, but so that's why we're working on formalization specifically as a major area of growth, the development of bylaws, having those looked at by lawyers, having our founding member schools be participative within that. So that's a huge area of growth for us this year. And we're making really good time, actually, so we're quite proud of it. As well, lobbying outside of budget cycles. We tried to be a 365 advocacy organization, and we grow in our capacity for that every year. Recruiting other U15 schools, of course, is a huge priority. We just got U Ottawa, so we're quite happy about that. And our online presence, our Instagram looks pretty nice these days, so follow us at ucrew_can.
All right, and then just to go a little bit deeper into formalization and what that means for us. So far this year, we worked together with our 9 student unions and now 10 to make sure that each member agrees with the bylaws and that everybody's collaborating on shared principles that we all agree with. And recently, we just hired lawyers officially for UCREW to incorporate the organization and start working on the bylaws so that we're operating officially and legally under the Canada Not-for-Profit Act. And we hope to have this done by January. And then in the new year, once the lawyers have reviewed the bylaws and each UCREW member has again rubber stamped them, we're going to bring them to each of our councils, so hopefully this body, to be able to review them, make sure you guys all agree with them, and then formalize the relationship that we've had for the last 4 years. So I guess the big question that is really important when we talk about student fees and student dollars is how much does it all cost? So right now, UCREW is operating completely free for all students at McGill and all students at U15 universities across Canada. We don't levy a fee. Instead, we operate by the goodwill of the 9 or 10 student unions who are involved in UCREW, and fees that we do have associated are split equally or by the goodwill of individuals within UCREW. We do have an intention to levy a fee sometime in the next couple of years, but that is something that we intend to do after formalization as the next step, and will be done in collaboration with each student union. It likely won't happen in any of our terms in the next couple of years, but it is something that we are working toward, specifically because one of the, I was just making sure my next slide wasn't different, but I'll keep going because sometimes I have a slide there that goes into it a little more. One of the weaknesses that we do have as an organization is we don't have any full-time staff. So right now we are only as good as the institutional memory that specific student unions have, which can be a bother. And I'm really fortunate in my position at the University Students' Council, where I only do external advocacy. So I'm able to dedicate a large portion of my time, about 40% of my week goes towards specifically UCREW-related advocacy. But not every student union has that capability. So full-time staff help with the equity aspect between schools so that each school has an opportunity to be chair or to be vice chair and take a meaningful leadership role in the organization. So that is everything from UCREW. Thank you guys so much for speaking with us today and listening to the presentation. I put my emails and my cell phone as well as our website if you want to check it out. And we'll also open up the floor to any questions if you have anything about what we're advocating on, what we're doing this year, the plans for formalization. But I also wanted to thank both AO and Jamark for their wonderful engagement this year. They both sit on the board of directors for UCREW and have been really, really helpful in bringing different perspectives. So we're excited to work with them into the rest of the year. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mackenzie and Kristen. I don't believe there's any questions. Oh, Councillor Wan.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So thank you very much for the presentation. I checked the website and it does not appear that there is currently a French platform for the website. are you in the process of translating the website to French as well, or are you planning to keep it English primarily for now? Thank you.
Great question. And I can say that not having full staff is one of the reasons why we lack currently in French capacity here at UCRU. McGill is, I guess technically U Ottawa has a big French aspect now. I keep having to correct my language because we literally accepted them in this afternoon. But that is something that we are including in our bylaws, that we're really going to strive to provide communications in French as well as English. And that will be a requirement of the full-time staff that we hire, that they operate in both official languages. But right now, we have completed lobby meetings in both English and French every single year. So we do try and bring that aspect to our official advocacy organizations. But I completely agree that that is an area that our organization could improve on.
All right, thank you very much. And I believe Councillor Guiaz de Ansel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So thanks so much for the presentation and for coming. And I'm really happy to see that UCRU is alive and well. I was on the board of directors last year, so very, very cool. Congrats on U Ottawa. My question surrounds the fee. So as you may know, SSMU has had a long history of affiliation with various Canada-wide student associations. So we were a member of CFS, we were a founding member of CASA, we're now a founding member of UCRU. One thing that seems to be the case is these federal advocacy priorities don't align very well with Quebec, which may explain why it's difficult to recruit Quebec universities for these sorts of groups. So for example, work integrated learning and immigration questions are handled through the Quebec government. Affordable tuition is handled through the Quebec government. Are there plans to, or is there intention rather, to make sure that the advocacy pushing federal agents to put similar pressures on Quebec governments for likewise policy changes remains a priority for UCRU? Because otherwise I fear that Quebec will sort of get lost in the mix, even though we're paying an equal share for federal advocacy.
For sure, and I can speak a little bit to our position here at the University Students' Council. I completely understand the frustration that can come with federal advocacy organizations. We were also a founding member of CASA and a member of the CFS here at the USC. And so what we're really hoping for at UCRU by having a smaller number of schools with larger populations is that we have a lot of shared interests, but also understanding that specific schools, specifically like McGill and schools that operate in Quebec have specific needs as well. So we strive to be consensus driven. And so far, every issue that we've had brought up on our board has been able to be addressed in that matter. So I can completely see a world where this is something that we talk about in the next couple of years, and we would be completely opening to advocating for issues like this that affect students in Quebec.
All right, thank you very much, Mackenzie. I don't think, are there any further questions for either Mackenzie or Kristen? Senator Daryanani.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. It was great hearing a Canadian-led research base. I just wanted to ask a question about your advocacy priorities currently. Perhaps what were they before COVID hit, and what would they be after COVID?
So for the last 4 years, UCRU has had the same general topics as advocacy priorities. We've had Indigenous students, international students, student financial aid, and work integrated learning, as well as, as well as research. But a lot of times work integrated learning kind of weaves through a bunch of those other topics. So we have asked in the year for a tuition tax credit to be turned into grants, as well as just different amounts of money for the PSSP and expansions to work integrated learning programs. So each year we have the similar topics, but ask for more money and more expansions for students. And then one of the reasons this year why we pivoted specifically to the Truth and Reconciliation recommendation was because we saw a great amount of investment in the post-secondary student support program for Indigenous students. So we thought because we got that reception, we would expand it a little bit. Our advocacy has changed a little bit because of COVID-19 and some of the challenges that it's exposed for students. This year, we also added in our budget submission an ask on connectivity for Canadians. So focusing on internet access and equitable internet access for people in rural and northern and Indigenous communities who now might be working from home and have more remote classes than normal. So that's just one of the examples of how our advocacy has pivoted a little bit, because issues that might not have been at the forefront of students' minds now are really coming to light. So I cannot predict how our advocacy is going to change, because I feel like sometimes with COVID, things come out of the blue. But one of the things that is really beneficial about being a smaller organization and a newer organization is that we're able to be really agile and adapt to things that do come. Kristen, I saw you went off mute.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll just add to that answer, and it captures most of what we do over at UCRU, but I sort of wanted to speak to COVID-19 and how that influences advocacy more broadly. I think that a lot of times I've talked to students and I've talked to even administrators at my own institution, and the idea is that, COVID-19 is going to change everything. And while that's partly true, and UCRU has operated that way, we send letters to the Minister of Immigration, the Minister of Finance, asking for COVID-specific measures, like asking for international students to be welcomed back into the country. We asked for some things related to international students being able to work here in Canada if they're essentially stuck here. So we asked for those specific things through letters and sort of outside of Lobby Week advocacy. But what we also found was that previous advocacy asks actually are all the more important with the impact of COVID-19. So we didn't feel like we necessarily needed to change them and reinvent the wheel. The idea was that, look, we are now in a mode of economic recovery, and things like work integrated learning, research opportunities, immigration, including Indigenous students and bringing Indigenous students to our campuses and supporting Indigenous students is going to be quite literally more important than ever. So that's sort of how we've operated, and it's really a mix of those two approaches. So I hope that also adds a little bit of context.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mackenzie and Kristen. I don't believe there's any other individuals with questions. So thank you very much for both coming this evening to speak to us.
Thank you.
All right, Wing, if you can just resume screen sharing.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, with that, we are going to begin moving on to item 7, a generative discussion on counselor remuneration. For all new counselors, a generative discussion is basically a less rigid. It's just a way to say it's a discussion on the given topic. So generally speaking, things are relatively more relaxed. You can pose questions. You can provide your opinion. It really doesn't matter as long as it first off remains in line with the standing rules, as well as remaining on topic with the topic that we've designated. So for this one, it's counselor remuneration, and the second one would be on smooth practices of policy surrounding levying student fees. We're going to note that right now we have a 20-minute duration on this one. We're going to cap the limit on these discussions at 30 minutes. We know discussions could go on forever in legislative council, but we're not. That's not. We do have other items to attend to this evening. That being said, we're going to begin with item 7. Item 7A. No, just item 7. So all individuals wishing to participate in this, you can just either raise your hand or indicate that you'd like to participate in discussion on this, and I'll recognize you via the speaking list. So we'll begin with VP University Affairs.
Hello. Right, so I'm responsible for this discussion point. As you may have remembered from some of my reports, I've been working on a project lately essentially aimed at ensuring that student representatives, counselors, and senators are fairly remunerated for their work. I don't think it's lost on all of you that the SSMU really wouldn't exist without your contributions. And as it stands now, unfortunately, those contributions are unpaid. So I guess I'll go into a little bit of detail on how I originally planned on going about doing that. The original plan was to levy a student fee. This was seen as the best option after consulting with actually all of your faculty associations through the President's Roundtable. that fee would then go to an associated fund, which would fund wages for counselors and senators who would then be SMU employees under essentially a new position that we would create as a kind of impartial, autonomous governance commissioner whose sole responsibility would be supporting representatives.
You have 15 more seconds.
Right, so I open at any questions you have on the project. I can also share our draft job description for counselors if anyone has questions.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move forward with Counselor Reed and then Counselor Gunderman. So Counselor Reed, just to remind everyone, we're continuing to abide by the 1 minute speaking time.
Thank you, Speaker, and please interrupt me if anybody can't hear me. I find this idea particularly interesting, especially considering the unique situation of legislative counselors, both as members, as participating members of both SMU and leaderships of their respective faculties. And I think one part of addressing this question has to do with individual faculties' philosophies on paying their executives. As we know, SMU representatives occupy different spaces within the sort of executive and leadership positionality in their own faculties. And hence, there's a lot that needs to be worked out there. It is, as my understanding, EUS has held a philosophy that its executives should not be remunerated for their expenses. Nobody in EUS, except for its sort of day-to-day employees, at least nobody in EUS leadership, is getting paid for their work. And so I anticipate that from EUS, possibly from other faculty and organizations that aren't paying their executives, that would clash with the philosophy of remuneration with respect to their own leadership. And it's not something that I can speak to directly, having not consulted with EUS about it yet as a whole. But I certainly anticipate that there would be friction with respect to how that conversation would play out.
All right, thank you very much, Counselor Reed. Counselor Gunderman.
Yes, thank you. I just have a few questions. So I was wondering how much students will have to pay per semester, and then also what the salary of the counselors would be, and if it would be an hourly wage.
Since we're asking a question, VP University Affairs, you may answer that.
Sure. Right. Okay. So I can address the first part of your question in saying that the original estimate that we had worked on over the summer for what the fee would look like placed it at around, I believe, depending on certain factors, in the range of 90 cents to $1.25, depending. There's a little bit of breathing room depending on some variables, but generally in that range. That would be actually, depending on whether or not it's opt-outable, it would be, I believe, 90 cents non-opt-outable or $1.25 opt-outable was what the VP Finance and I determined to be like essentially enough to cover the costs of funding these wages. As it stands now, there are still a couple considerations that need to be made for the actual hourly wages themselves. So I can't give an update on that just yet, but know that it will come eventually.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Speaker. I would just like to ask two quick questions. First off, I'd like to wonder if this would also apply to other students who do unpaid work for the SMU as well. For example, the board director, the BOD directors, and also the members at large. And my second question is, how will unjustified absences be dealt with? How would they be adjudicated? So would it be through an HR or other special committees that exist in place to handle these situations? Thank you.
VP University Affairs, you can reply.
Thank you. Right, so since this would be, since this would be an hourly wage, I guess the expectation would be that counselors would only report hours for the time that they spend in council or working on council projects or attending committee meetings, etc. So with that in mind, this quote unquote supervisor position that we assigned is really not a supervisor, it's more of an advisor. In a sense, councilors would still report to their constituency as it is now, with, I guess, the accountability committee charged with ensuring that procedures are followed and that councilors are maintaining their responsibilities. So in terms of HR, it would really just be some bare minimum validating. And for members at large, I would say that, to my knowledge, the members at large that I guess perform labor for the society are mostly committee members or working on like a very ad hoc project basis, which with a much lower commitment or level of responsibility than councilors and senators. At least that's my understanding.
All right, thank you very much. We'll next go to Councillor Karasik.
So I'd just like to actually note that when this came on the Tribune article, we actually discussed this at AUS Council on Tuesday. So I want to bring some of the stuff that we discussed over there to here. AUS has historically always paid its SMU representatives. We treat arts representatives and VP external, as part of the executive and part of the executive committee, which is why we end up with that justification. So there was discussion about how it would work with our budgets, how we would pay or SMU pay. Overall, it seemed supportive, like AUS seemed supportive of the idea of SMU doing the paying for AUS councils, for arts representatives and like SMU representatives as a whole. They didn't seem particularly opposed, but I just wanted to kind of bring that in because it is relevant. It's from AUS. It's kind of not the official AUS opinion, but it was kind of what the room was thinking.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Karasik. We'll go to Councillor Smith, then Senator Daryanani, and then VP University Affairs. So, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Vice President of University Affairs for bringing this to us. I think this is a really interesting concept. I think there's a really great way that we could kind of be creative, and COVID has really taught us we have to be creative. My real question is, and this was kind of touched upon by Councillor Reid, we look at kind of faculty associations that don't pay their executives, and AUS, fortunately, is one that does pay their executives. Would paying a member of a faculty executive, and like, for example, Councillor Bonin, who is the only law rep there or here, would that create a certain amount of inequity within those faculty associations that one executive is paid while the others are not? So my question to the Vice President of University Affairs.
Right. Just VP University Affairs, are you good with remembering these until I call on you?
Yes, although I might need to ask for an extension beyond the 1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll next go to Senator Daryanani.
Hi, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd just like to ask about the scope of the fee. Would it potentially in the future increase pay for university-wide representatives, perhaps a collaboration with other faculties, and this would maybe address the concerns brought about by Councillor Reid in making sure that all individuals doing similar work are remunerated fairly?
All right, thank you very much, Senator Daryanani, and VP University Affairs.
Cool, okay, so right, to address Councillor Smith's question, this was a topic of like a very long discussion. I kind of took up an entire presidential roundtable meeting talking about this. So I would say the initial incarnation of the plan was actually as a subsidy whereby faculty associations could apply for funding so that they could remunerate their own representatives, seeing as at the end of the day, like all of you serve your associations or your constituents more broadly. However, the idea of that kind of awkwardness or inequity within faculty associations was kind of what led many of the members of the President's Roundtable to suggest that it might actually be better for SMU to handle the dissemination of funding, or I guess the employment of counselors. I agree that it could definitely be awkward if the SMU rep was being paid where executives internal to the association are not. However, I think the goal of this fund was to address the existing inequities that we already see between counselors and senators at SMU. I mean, like as
on VP University Affairs time.
Sorry, just a point of personal privilege.
Yes, Councillor Gradza-Ansel.
Request permission to leave temporarily for now, and I can email you to let you know if it's a permanent situation came up.
Sounds good. All right, we'll note the temporary departure of the Francophone Affairs representative at 1903. Councillor Smith, how long were you moving?
Motion to move an extension of the Vice President University's time by 90 seconds.
All right, we have a 90-second extension. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williamson, is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 90-second extension has been granted.
Right. So, I mean, it's already the case that there are representatives, both counselors and senators at SMU that are being paid well. I would say the majority are not. I think the important distinction here is that this wage, like this project essentially, is to compensate counselors and senators for the work that they do for the SMU as a whole and for the university, like undergraduate students as a whole. Since at the end of the day, like you are all here to represent the views of your constituencies, but you can't deny that SMU would not exist without your labor, without your motions and policies and amendments and everything that keeps the society functioning. So at the end of the day, it's really more a wage for your participation within the society rather than your position within your distinctive faculty associations. So I agree, it's not a perfect situation. There's still going to be awkwardness. I unfortunately, like I think at the end of the day, like this was the best solution that we could come up with for a problem that needs to be solved, in my opinion, as soon as possible. And with respect to expansion of the project, I think, sure, there's definitely potential to expand the project to anyone who is, I guess, serving the SMU or serving undergraduate students. I would say that at this point, our most pressing need is the compensation of counselors and senators, since they are so essential to the functioning of the society, not just its representation. But I think that once this project is established, once we have a solid trial run, then I'm all for expanding it as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll next go to Councillor Gunderman.
Yeah, thank you. So this is just a question for clarification purposes. So you said you based this or like discussion off this policy opposing unpaid internships. So I just want to clarify, are we considered interns?
VP University Affairs, I'll let you reply to that right away.
Thank you. So no, not, well, I guess not technically. I think like this project was based, I guess, on the spirit of the policy against unpaid internships. I'm not entirely sure if in a legal or political sense you're considered to be interns. I think that's, I guess, a longer discussion that would require more consultation with provincial regulations. But that being said, the basing the project on that policy was more to kind of point out the existing inequities and the double standard where SMU takes a stance against McGill using unpaid labor, whereby we ourselves already profit off of unpaid labor, if that makes sense.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. We have proxy for Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I guess my first question would be, given how us as a society functions and I guess our membership's view on fees, especially since McGill just raised their fees this year, how do you plan on justifying paying elected officials who are like within faculties to the membership, since I guess we've seen historically that for issues that don't necessarily strike home for each of these members, they don't tend to want to, I guess, push fees for that extent. How do you plan on framing this in such a way that would encourage, I guess, the passing of this fee? Because I honestly don't see it really being a big priority for a lot of students.
All right, before going back to VP University Affairs, we'll first take questions from both Councillor Reid and Councillor Wan.
Thanks so much. I would also just like to, hinging on my comments earlier, as well as the VP University Affairs statement about a delineation between labor done for faculty organizations and labor done for SMU. I just want to ask the question of whether SMU representatives would be remunerated for work they do for their faculties and not necessarily for SMU as well, specifically attending their own faculty councils. For instance, my attendance of the EUS council, would I be remunerated for that by SMU?
Thank you very much, Councillor Wan, and then VP University Affairs.
Great, thanks very much. I have two quick questions. First, will the salaries of councillors and senators be made publicly available? And second, will salaried councillors and senators be able to unionize? Thank you.
VP University Affairs.
These are some very interesting questions. Thank you. Okay, so with regards to like justifying the fees to students, I realize like this is a tough pitch. Like this isn't paying for a service that is, going to be like any new services that students are going to be able to make direct use of. But I think like the importance here is that we're paying for an existing service, like work that SMU counselors and senators have already been doing for as long as the society has existed. It's less about, I guess I think that is how I would approach campaigning for a yes vote here. There's also work that VP Finance and I are doing around like making the fee amount more attractive with regards to like lowering the fee amount versus making it opt-outable that we're still making considerations by. I agree that it is kind of a tough pitch, but I think that it's something that is worth trying. It's something that no SMU executive or council representative has been able to achieve thus far. But I think that it's gone too long that SMU has been profiting off of the labor of its representatives without paying them for their enormous contributions to the society, because we wouldn't exist without our representatives. With regards to the question around can I get an extension?
We have an extension
by how long do you need, Vice President of University Affairs?
A minute.
Motion to extend by a minute.
All right, we have a motion to extend by a minute. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Krosick. Is there any opposition? Hearing none. VP University Affairs, given that you also have 15 seconds remaining, you have 75 more seconds.
Thank you. Right, so, okay, for the delineation of tasks between, like what exactly will councillors and senators be paid for? I don't have a complete answer at this point. I would say, I guess I can give my personal opinion. I guess I would say that as SMU counselors, as like, if this fee is truly to like compensate counselors and senators for the work that they do for the society, in my mind, it would be limited to SMU activities. So attending SMU committees, working on SMU projects, or like serving on like attending council meetings. That being said, that's still open to interpretation. That's open to discussion around the division of like what will they actually be paid for? I mean, I would say that any of the responsibilities contained in the job description is fair game for compensation. And I would say that the job description, FYI, is based exclusively on responsibilities that are found in the Constitution and areas of governance and representation and advocacy. So that's the best answer I can give for that. With regards to being represented, like with unionization, I would say that if this passes, and at some point in the future, whenever we can put it to referendum, and if councillors and senators are made employees of the SMU, then they would be represented by the SMU union in that case.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Councillor Wan, before I get to you, we'll note that we're just about we've just about expended our 20 minutes. So is there a desire from a councillor to extend our generative discussion?
Motion to extend the generative discussion by 10 minutes.
We have a motion to extend by 10 minutes. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Senator Marianani. Is there any opposition?
Yeah, can we motion to extend by 5 minutes instead?
Councillor Wan, would you be amenable to that?
Sure.
All right. All right, so we have a motion to extend generative discussion by 5 minutes. Is there any opposition to this? Hearing none, we'll have a 5-minute extension. Councillor Wan, you may now ask your question.
All right, thanks very much. Thank you, Vice President, University Affairs, for your great answers. I just have some more questions. First, how do work-study subsidies apply to this, and in particular with counselors who are not currently in financial difficulty? And second, will SMU commissioners who sit on the Legislative Council be paid an additional salary on top of their already base commissioner salary? Thank you.
VP University Affairs?
I would first say that I think for the next generative discussion on this, I might want to bring in someone from HR, but I will do my best to address those concerns. I would say that, okay, with regards to counselors, I think that if the counselor is mandated, sorry, not counselor, commissioner, if the commissioner is mandated to attend council, then in that case, I believe that would fall under their responsibilities as a commissioner. In that case, I don't believe that they would require essentially a second position to also serve on council. Although, again, I think more of a question for HR that, thank you, I will relay and get to the bottom of this. With regards to work study, this has actually been a very big part of the planning, or has actually taken up a lot of my time logistically. So essentially, one of the first ideas was why can't we just subsidize this through work study? That's what AUS does, SUS does the same thing. The concern there was that there are some very strict requirements associated with work study subsidy, especially around that especially constrain international students and students that might not fit the SSAO's definition of being in need financially.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. VP University Affairs, your name is on. Do you have something else to bring up, or is that the answer to the question?
That was going to be the answer to the question. Although, could I get a motion to extend?
Can we have a motion to extend VP University Affairs time?
A motion to extend by 3 minutes.
That would be extending to the end of the generative discussion. But okay,
and then it would be fine.
Okay, motion to extend by 1 minute. All right, motion to extend by 1 minute.
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Senator Dorianani. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, VP University Affairs, you have a 1 minute extension.
Thank you all for being so accommodating. Right, so for work study, there are a lot of restrictions imposed. I know that it's been the case in the past that certain counselors and senators have been eligible and have received wages and others have not. And that is absolutely something that we want to avoid ideally. So instead, or at least I'm currently planning on pursuing a blended approach in which subsidies from scholarships and student aid will be pursued for any counselors or senators that qualify for them. But for the others, they will still be supported by the fee. So with that comes the possibility that the fee amount could be lowered in future, depending on, I guess, how much SSAO is able to subsidize. I believe the starting amount is $5. But for now, our goal is to be able to support all counselors and senators strictly ourselves without depending on the university funding. But ideally, those subsidies will be pursued in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs and Councillor Wan.
Oh, sorry, I have no more questions. Thank you.
Are there any further individuals wishing to participate in the generative discussion at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8. Generative discussion on the SMU's practices and policies surrounding levying student fees. We'll first recognize Finance Commissioner Duckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I permitted to share my screen briefly?
Yep, let me just grant you access. Okay, parliamentarian, if you can stop sharing. Okay, there you go. Finance Commissioner. It should work now.
Thank you. Can you see my presentation? Okay, perfect. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to say this in advance. I'm going to need a motion to extend that at some point in the next couple seconds, because I definitely have more than 1 minute of things to talk about. So for those of you who haven't met, I'm nice to meet you. My name's Sebastian. I'm the Finance Commissioner this year. Last year, I was in the same position as many of you are now, as the counselor representing the music faculty. So I do have some experience with SSMU. This is a topic that we raised and want to pursue, and this came from our Finance Committee meetings. The issue of fees and levying student fees and all the policies around it has always been one of controversy on SSMU and within the school community. So we've decided to take it upon ourselves as a committee the task of investigating the current SSMU policies and making recommendations for new ones. And so this presentation is briefly going to outline that process, what we're looking to do. And then we'd like to hear from all of you to get the ball rolling on consultations and to see where we should aim our efforts in this project. So we're calling it ISFEEP. It's essentially just the investigation to SSMU student fee policies. And to give a brief overview, our timeline for this investigation is we're hoping to, by December, mid-December, have completed all the consultations for this initiative. December to January, we'll complete the report and compile the data, and then we're looking to have this in front of all of you in mid-January. The goal with the tighter timeline is that we would like to have these new policies in place by the time the referendum questions are up for the winter semester, because there's quite a few fees that are going to be up.
Can we have a motion to extend?
Motion to extend by 5 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, Finance Commissioner, you have a 5-minute extension.
Thank you. I hope not to take the full 5 minutes, but just to continue, to give a brief overview of the consultations we plan on holding. The main groups that, or the most numerous groups that we're going to be consulting will be internal to SSMU, just because the people who have the most involvement with this SSMU's policies and with the effects of these fees firsthand are usually internal. And to just point out a few of these in particular, the funding committee, since they dish out a lot of the money from the fees that they're responsible for. The accounting department especially is going to be critical, because they're the ones who work with this on the front lines. And then obviously the services executives and services rep, that's going to be a key group that we want to consult, because many of them pass fees and many of these rules will impact them directly. And then we plan on consulting external consultations with the general public. The general public one will be the largest consultation by far, and we plan on doing so in the form of a survey and holding a couple public sessions in town halls. The McGill administration is on here. The reason they're on here is because they do themselves have a number of fees that they run through us periodically. And so we thought if they're willing to even respond to us and give some good faith feedback, that we would consult them. Some initial considerations just to put in front of you. This is essentially a breakdown of all the fees as per the Know Where Your Money Is Going campaign that SSMU launches at the beginning of every year. You'll see that the two biggest categories of fees are administrative fees and university fees. Those are all ones generating typically from the university. Now, just to give a little bit of scope, if you add up all these fees and you multiply it by the number of students, it becomes $45 million a year in fees that we've essentially passed. That are being levied on the students. So it's definitely no small amount of money. And there are definitely a number of problems that we plan on fixing and addressing with this. So it's clearly something with a higher degree of importance for us on the finance committee. Yes. And then just maybe one more point to give some direction to what we're doing. We've kind of allocated the whole process of fees into 3 phases. So there's this initial submission and approval of a new fee, the execution of the fee, which typically transpires over a period of 4 to 5 years, and then the renewal of the fee. And I'll stop sharing my screen for a second and just add a few more points onto that. As someone who served on this council last year, I know firsthand that discussions about fees can become contentious. Also, just having been a part of the McGill community now for 5 years, I know that as a a student external to SMU, there's a lot of criticism that's launched at the SMU for launching and passing a number of these fees. People typically don't like looking at their student bill and seeing SMU fee, SMU fee, SMU fee, and all these other fees that we pass. That in and of itself doesn't make it a problem, but a number of the criticisms we get from these groups are valid. I won't have a chance to overview a lot of the problems that we've already identified, but there's a lot of problems with our current policies and especially with our absence of policies in a lot of places. One particular area which has become even more visible because of COVID has to do with what happens when a committee or a fee recipient doesn't spend all of their money in a year, or what happens when the money they're spending isn't going to the right places. Essentially, there's no accountability right now for that amount, and that becomes a problem. For example, in a year like this, where, for example, MCERT is still collecting fees, but is not capable of offering any services at all. So under the current policies, all of their money will just be rolled over to next year. And that is not a small amount. It is in the tens of thousands of dollars. So looking at mechanisms that first add accountability, but then also allow for spillover amounts of money to be redistributed somehow, that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at. So the scope of this is fairly wide. We're looking to recommend a number of policy guidelines and process changes to the committee. We're flirting a little bit right now with having fee applications first go through the finance committee to do an initial review before they'd be submitted to legislative council, so that a recommendation could be made based solely off of the financial review of the fee application. Another problem that we've identified that happens in the submission and approval phase is that it's fairly common for, and in my experience, this is what happened with the McGill administration, them to come give a brief verbal, sometimes small presentation about the merits of a fee, but there will be no information tied to why they're asking for the specific amount. And so that kind of accountability, oh, I'm already at 5 minutes. I'm going to finish it there, but I would like to open this up to everyone to talk about the problems they've identified and see where they would like this to go. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Commissioner Duckett, for being here. I really appreciate it. Would you be able to submit the presentation so we're able to access it afterward? It's not in the drive for councillors.
Yes, I'll submit it to the parliamentarian to make sure it's in there.
That was great. Thank you. So we'll go to Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Commissioner Duckett, for the presentation. I just have two quick questions regarding the process. So first off, so far, what alternative funding models are floating around regarding student fees? Is there an expectation that this will reduce the fee burden for students? And second, will the matter of opt-outable versus non-opt-outable fees be considered in this investigation? Thank you.
I'll respond to that. Effectively, everything is on the table right now. We are looking at a lot of the stuff. We aren't specifically looking at alternative funding models. The reality is that there kind of aren't many other options given the legislative requirements by the government in place for how universities raise money for a lot of these things. To the effect that we are probably going to be adding more rules and not less, that is likely to have some sort of impact on how much money gets raised because there's more hoops to jump through. Maybe fewer groups will choose to jump through them. We also would like to allow the finance committee the power to review fees on an ad hoc yearly basis. And if it's thought that the fee recipient doesn't merit the full amount or isn't fully using that amount properly, that a recommendation can be made to the Legislative Council to reduce the fee that's being collected. So that would be a way in which fees would be reduced, but we're not directly looking at ways to directly reduce fees, if that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much. We'll next go to Senator Daryanani.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Commissioner Duckett. It's great to see the Finance Committee taking on such a topic, considering that just last week we passed a couple of fees, and some of the points that you brought up regarding the contentiousness of it was definitely the reason for why we ended at 12:30 after midnight. So my question is actually one that I submitted for the question period, but since you're here, I think you might be suited to answer the question. And it's in fact something that you brought up regarding MCERT. So I'd just like to ask, how do you think the central fund that you mentioned would look like? And would this come into contradiction with other funds that are there, such as the Ambassador Fund for sustainability projects? Like, what sort of funding do you see would be suitable for reallocation of funding?
So I think a big part of our process will be to engage and implement a number of internal controls. Now, what to do with fees that are collected that are either too much of a surplus that we take back, or fees that we deem to be inappropriately high that we also deem to put into some sort of central pot. The way that looks will in part depend on our consultations and will in part depend on what this legislative body chooses to do. We kind of see two options in front of us. We could have a central fund where that money is then delegated to a specific purpose, or a central fund where that money is collected and then refunded to students. The idea behind the latter is that if a fee is charged for a service and that service does not fully use the fee, perhaps that fee should never have been that high and that money should have been refunded to students. There are options that we're looking at, and nothing is set in stone at this point, but we're open to ideas too.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other comments at this point? I'm just taking over for the speaker briefly. Okay, hearing none. We will move on the agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Duckett. Okay, so next we have a report from the SMU president.
Wing, I'm back now.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. So SMU president, you can take it away. Do you need us to present anything? I can't remember.
No. Can you hear me, by the way?
Okay. You're very muted.
Okay. Hold on. Give me a sec. Is it better now, or am I still muted?
Still about the same.
All right. I will switch to. Hold on. Let me just take off my headphones. Is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is just a report in regard to reinstatement of the 2017 SMU Constitution. So on September 5th, the J Board issued a response to the Board of Directors' appeal in regard to suspending their judgment of the SMU Constitution, which wasn't ratified accordingly. So it wasn't ratified because both the English and French version were not made available during the winter 2020 referendum period. So the J Board provided SMU up until November 1st to hold a special referendum to ratify the revised constitution with the supporting documents. As most of you probably know by now, it wasn't ratified, so it didn't meet quorum. So it had 12.8% of members voting. And so the revised version failed to be adopted. And so as per the IRs of elections and referendum, quorum should be 15%. And so this is just a report to talk about the next steps. So the J Board's judgment will take effect as of November 1st, which means that SMU has to take the following actions in order to properly reinstate the former 2017 Constitution. So it's going to be a restructuring of the Board of Directors. So you'll see a motion on this week's council to nominate 4 councilors and 4 members at large to the board. So we're going to be nominating, I believe, the 4 councilors today if that motion passes. We'll be reverting to the most recent edition of Robert's Rules instead of Code Video. Legislative Council will be restructured additionally, so it will be the removal of the Theology Representative, removal of the Francophone Affairs Committee Representative, removal of the Indigenous Affairs Committee Representative, removal of the Equity Committee Representative, and removal of the MCSS Representative. The following constituencies will be added. So 1 representative from the Inter-Residence Council, 1 additional Senate Caucus representative, and 1 Environment representative. Additionally, the Executive Committee will be voting members of council. This also affects, so it's going to remove the Joint Board Council session. Executives and the General Manager's duties can now be found in the Constitution, including the VP Sustainability and Operations position, which hasn't existed for quite some time. General assemblies will now be held both in the fall and winter semester instead of just the winter semester, so twice a academic year now. Both versions of the Constitution, English and French, will have equal authority. So the 2021 said that the French would supersede if there was a conflict. The Bylaw Appellate Committee, which is the J Board, is back to being known as the Judicial Board. And so the DIPSO will be notified of the reinstatement of the previous constitution to ensure that it's properly reflected in the MOA between SMU and the university. So yeah, it's just to let everyone know that SMU is going to be undergoing significant changes on the next few weeks in order to properly reinstate the 2017 constitution. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, SMU President. Moving on to questions. Again, all individuals with questions can either raise their hands or indicate so via the speaking list. So we'll go to Councillor Karasik.
All right. I had two quick questions about what happened. One, at least for me, I only learned when we were doing the referendum when it like showed up in my mail, like my email. What happened in terms of like actual publication of this, and did that potentially was that potentially one of the reasons that this might have failed? And second of all, since we are reverting, is there a plan to either this year or in the coming years try again? And if so, when would that be, to like put in the new constitution again?
SMU President, and if you want, you can defer also to the GDR for further information, but SMU President.
Yeah, I'll defer for the second question, but just for the first one, yeah, so that was probably one of the reasons that maybe our communications weren't as strong as they have been in the past. I know there were several ads that were put out on Instagram and on Facebook. I don't know how far those reached. And yeah, so the communications was definitely probably one aspect of why it failed to reach quorum. And then I'll defer to governing documents researcher for the second question.
Okay, so in my position as governing documents researcher, my roles has definitely changed as a result of this. And so we have a CGRC meeting coming tomorrow. And so we're going to discuss this among other things as well, where I'm also going to be organizing consultations. And so what I suspect will occur, I can't say for sure, but what I suspect will occur is that we're going to go through all of the changes that were originally brought forward to be changed, do further consultations to see if that's still the desire of the student body, and as well as the consultations. I know there is a few individuals who reached out to us after their positions were cut. So looking into that. And so there's the potential, I can't guarantee that it will be brought up again and the exact thing will be brought up again, but it's definitely going to be a discussion point going forward. Moving on, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just would like to advise that if this is more suited for question period, more than happy to ask it then. But my question is to the president representing the executive. This is a referendum. It's a campaign, and as a recovering Ottawa Hill staff, where I run a few campaigns my day, and I know that get out the vote is the most important thing. So my question to the executive, and frankly, there was no real get out the vote in this campaign. So my question is, what did the executive do to get turnout? Like, what deals were made to students? What was used? Whether it's their Facebook posts? Like, what was the responsibility of the executive in that?
SMU President.
Yeah, so as I said before, we used a couple, the advertisements. There was word of mouth messaging, like sharing the posts. Again, we're obviously running at a reduced capacity with a member of the executive taking a leave of absence due to illness. So there definitely, more could have been done. We're not disputing that fact, but yeah, those are the methods that we used for this special referendum. And additionally, we were trying to get the, because this is the same referendum question that went for the winter 2020. So we were trying to find what was used last year, and that took quite some time because it was very deep. But yeah, if that answers your question, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Speaker. I just have two more quick questions. First, what will happen to the CGRC report, which was commissioned to improve governance, as far as I'm aware, I think? And second, what will happen to the hired positions as part of the 2020 Constitution? Thank you.
Yeah, did you want to answer the first one within your capacity as GDR?
Yeah, that works. So the CGRC report, they still remain there. The GDR presents multiple reports. They're still going to be there. They're still within my drive for consideration. And so we're still going to, when we're moving forward with CGRC and CGRC consultations, and in my individual work as GDR, I'm going to consult as I would previously. But SMU President, yeah, you can go. I'll defer back to you for the rest.
Yeah, so for the positions that were hired, so we were about to start the hiring for the alumni and professional representatives. So the call-outs were there. The hirings have not been done, so obviously they've been paused or suspended indefinitely, so that we can make the appropriate hirings. But any, I guess, it's specifically in reference to the legislative council, the changes that are going to be made. So obviously those ones are going to be removed. But for any positions that were hired, those either did not happen yet or they're suspended indefinitely.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no other individuals with questions, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to item 10, announcements. So all individuals with announcements can indicate so either via the speaking list or by raising their hands. Are there any individuals with announcements at this time?
Yes, I have one.
Yep.
So I couldn't raise my hand in time, but yeah, I just wanted to announce that Last Minute Studios is continuing with graduation photography starting the week of October 28th. So we would like some help in getting the message out to all graduating students that these are happening. So Last Minute has reached out to all of the faculty associations, and if folks here in this meeting at council could also reach out to their faculty associations, get it out in your listserv, make sure that you're sharing this on social media so that all students can know that graduation photography is starting next week and going all the way until April. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. VP Student Life, Councillor Williamson.
Awesome. I was just going to announce AUS and SUS are hosting a joint grad fair on November 4th. So if anyone is interested or want to promote that, we're going to be putting up things sometime this week. So.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Williamson. Are there any further individuals with announcements at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to question period. We'll first begin with the questions that were submitted, which will be read out by myself, the speaker, and then we'll defer to the floor. We're going to note that currently question period is limited to 5 minutes, but can be extended. We will begin with submission of question 1 from Senator Daryanani. Given that due to COVID-19 restrictions, services such as MCERT are not able to function to full capacity, are the funds being reallocated? How much is in the surplus? So I assume VP Finance.
Yep, yeah, I can answer that. So funds raised through student fees per specific department, in this example, MCERT 7015, does stay within that department. So any reallocations for now are going to remain within that department. But with that being said, MCERT, VP Student Life, and I are continuing our ongoing discussion on how the money must be spent in accordance with their mandate, especially in this COVID era, in order to best service students and prevent any major surpluses at the end of the year.
All right, thank you very much. Question 2, with regards to the post made by SMU on the conflict in the caucuses, how did the consultation process look like? Who was involved in the consultation process? And I'll defer this to any executive wishing to answer.
Sorry, I put my name on the speaking list, but may I?
Yeah, SMU President.
Okay, perfect. Also, can you hear me now? I tried new headphones.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the consultation process was between, I guess, the McGill Armenian Student Society and the SMU executive team. So as a society that's committed to demonstrating leadership, in matters of human rights, social justice, environmental protection, we decided to share a message on behalf of the McGill Armenian Students Association. So I believe that answers both of those questions that are there from Councillor Daryanani.
All right, thank you very much. Then we have a question submitted from Councillor Wan. Can the matter be addressed via an equity complaint where possible recommendations from the commissioner can also be brought forward to improve our communications?
I can take this one.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this could just like an equity complaint can certainly be filed on this matter. It would then go to the equity complaint committee, who would assess essentially like whether or not it falls under the equity policy. I guess I don't really want to speak on like my own interpretation of whether or not this applies to the equity policy. Like in the end, like it's the complaint committee that like decides that. In that case, with regards to the second part of the question, if the equity complaint committee deems that like this matter is under the scope of the equity policy, then like yes, they would be responsible for drafting a report and filing a report with recommendations to the board of directors for ratification.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any further individuals with questions at this time?
I couldn't, sorry, Councillor Cook too. I couldn't write my question to the sheet, but can I just like speak out loud?
As long as it's phrased in a question.
Yes, it's a question. So this is to like any of the execs that have maybe some kind of an input, but was there like a specific reason why this post was never mentioned in neither the Legislative Council approved by the Board of Directors, or like was never mentioned in one of the committees or the councils of SSMU?
SSMU executive, we'll go to SSMU president.
Yeah, so the post isn't an official statement on behalf of any of the governing bodies, hence why it didn't come to Legislative Council or appear as a motion from the executive committee. So a student group or like a SSMU student group asked us to share a statement on their behalf, which we've done at certain points throughout the summer and throughout the fall semester. So that includes the reforms to the PEQ, statement on anti-Black racism and police violence, on the racist attacks against Mi'kmaq fishermen. So it's not an official statement on behalf of any SSMU governing body, and it's more so just sharing a post on behalf of the McGill Armenian Students Association. If that answers your question. If not, I can clarify.
All right, thank you very much. There is the desire to ask more questions, but the 5 minutes has been allotted. So can I have an extension on question period at this time?
Motion to extend question period by 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. I'll take that as a second. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 5 minutes has been granted, and Councillor Collins, you may ask your question. Councillor Collins.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit unclear who specifically made the post.
SSMU executive.
What?
I can try that. So I can explain the entire process in detail.
Oh yeah, and then also I was wondering who decided to mute, or who decided to, sorry, did you hear me?
Yeah.
Point of order,
Yeah,
actually. If this contains first identifying information, would this be better off to do in confidential session due to potential risk to whoever's involved?
Sorry, Councillor Bostic, can you repeat?
Sorry, just I don't know if it's point of order or point of personal privilege. If this contains personally identifying information, would this be better off for a confidential session?
Councillor Collins, would you, if you'd like an specific answer, we would move forward. SSMU executives, do you believe it requires a confidential?
I can do so without naming any individuals.
Okay.
Right. So.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Collins. Yeah.
Well, sorry. Yeah, I don't want to create a hostile environment for anyone. I have just had a lot of constituents really wanting clarity on the issue, so that's only why I asked.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Collins. VP University Affairs.
Sure thing. So to explain the whole process, the SMU, I guess I would say executives, I guess each were kind of individually approached by the McGill Armenian Students Association, who came to us with a statement that they wanted us to share along with some visuals. That was sent then to the communications department. Who essentially like took the suggested statement and visuals that the MSA had provided and like reworked it into something that like all of the executives were comfortable posting on this new Facebook page. And then once it was we conducted a straw poll vote to ensure that everyone was like okay with the statement and what was being shared. And then it was shared to the Facebook page by the communications department.
All right, thank you very much. VP University Affairs, are there any other questions at this time? Seeing no further, Counselor, proxy for Counselor Fernandez.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Turn your volume off. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to ask whose decision it was to mute comments on the post.
Sorry, I can. Yeah, I can finish. Sorry, I completely missed that part of the question. That's my bad. So that decision was, I guess, formally made by the executive committee on the recommendation of the communications department, who is concerned that like the sheer volume of comments posed a significant risk to, I guess, like the maintenance of safety on the Facebook page. Essentially, like what usually happens, like the communications department reviews every single comment that is made and like ensures that they're all like safe, non-threatening, non-hostile, like don't contain anything like potentially, I guess, like triggering or traumatizing or anything that probably ought not be on this new Facebook page. So with the sheer volume of comments, the recommendation came from the communications department that commenting should be disabled because at that point they believed that they did not have the ability to manage the volume of comments that was being received. And so the executive committee approved the decision to disable commenting.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to probably need an extension, but we'll do so after Councillor Wan asks his question.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to ask if there's currently any consideration for a formal retraction of the post or if there are no further actions envisioned currently. Thank you.
An executive?
I can keep taking these.
Oh, sorry, I was going to type sorry, go for it. Sorry, I'm trying to type my name in the speaking list, but it's all good.
VP University first.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so at current, it was a topic of discussion by the executive committee. And at this point, we're kind of the, like, at this point, we stand behind our message, and we have, at this point, no plans to retract or issue a formal statement. Oh, sorry, I guess a formal apology in this case.
All right, thank you very much. We're just going to note that we're about to reach our 5-minute extension. Can I have a further extension at this time?
I move to extend by 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williamson. Can I have a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 5 minutes have been granted, and we'll move on to Councillor Reid.
The previous speaker indicated that the SSMU Executive Council doesn't intend to change their position on the post that was made. Does this indicate that the Executive Council in any way expected or anticipated the level of response that was received on this post? Did they see that coming and decide that they would stand against it, or is that the reaction to the reaction?
Either SSMU President or VP University Affairs?
I don't mind.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the reason that we conducted essentially a straw poll vote before the initial post was made was because we understood that there was potential for this to be a contentious subject. With that being said, we were still confident that the message of solidarity itself fell well within our mandate to demonstrate leadership in matters of social justice and human rights. Furthermore, our responsibility to support our affiliated associations, including notably the McGill Armenian Students Association. So there was an expectation that it would be contentious. I can't speak to the opinions of the other executives or of the communications department, but I personally did not expect the volume of I guess commentary and feedback that we received. If that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Kirksu.
Yes, as a follow-up to the answer of the SMU president to the question 4, the one that I asked previously, in the past, this also developed some kind of concerns to various student societies. Was the procedure made by the active ruling of the J board in 2016 about the political post of Israel and Palestinian conflict, and they've consulted before posting, and specifically considering a passive reshare of such a political statement can still be understood as taking a stance and marginalizing various student groups, including the Turkish Student Society as well as Azerbaijan Student Society.
All right, thank you very much, SMU President.
Yeah, so I think the distinction between statements or social media posts and council initiated political positions is important when we're referencing the 2016 judicial board ruling on BDS and similar motions. So in their ruling, it says that SMU is not precluded from issuing statements related to the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And simply cannot adopt a platform which advocates against one of those nations. As it's not an official platform or council-initiated political position, I think the message that we shared is not in violation of the 2016 ruling. And furthermore, I think it's just important to recognize that condemning the actions of a particular nation is not equal to condemning its people. I think it's our firm belief that we can hold our governments accountable while still serving and representing our membership.
Permission to follow? Or is it
yeah, we'll allow one follow-up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The reason that I said it was it was passively still taking a stance and marginalizing various student groups was mainly because it can also be seen in the comments that were posted under that post. A lot of the students have been just marginalized and had different statements under the post, which I think is something that has been a problem because the post was shared by SMU rather than Armenian Student Society themselves. So wouldn't you agree that posting this thing, even though it's not actively taking a stance, but rather still passively agreeing with a certain student group and totally marginalizing the other student groups?
Moving forward, we're going to strike leading questions out of order, so including that one. SMU President, I will give you, if you'd like to reply to that one, you can. If not, that's fine, as it will be struck out of order otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess without the leading part, I don't think that it was, because the question that's there, I guess, is a follow-up to that, but just reinforcing or re-saying what I said before, I don't think it was in violation of the judicial board's ruling. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, SMU President. Senator Daryanani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is just, does the communications team or executive committee plan to open the comment section once again to ensure safe and open dialogue?
SMU Executive?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I'm not sure if we're going to open it right now. Just in addition to what Vice President University Affairs Frizzle mentioned before, and to monitoring the sheer amount of comments that we're getting, there were some hateful or very threatening messages that were posted in the comments. So I think at this point, it would be pretty impossible with just the staff that we have to monitor and make sure that it's a safe dialogue that's going on in the comments. We're all people, we have to sleep at some point. So I don't know if we'd be able to manage the comment period if we were to open it back up at this point.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to need a 10-minute, we're going to need an extension to allow Councillor Wan's question. So can I have an extension on question period at this time?
Motion to extend by 2 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Wan. Can I have a second? Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 2-minute extension has been granted. And Councillor Wan, you may ask your question.
Thank you, Speaker. Moving forward, do you think that existing communication mechanisms within the SSMU should change if a similar Facebook post request were to be made in the future? For example, should certain items be flagged and be deliberated at a higher level, such as within the Legislative Council here? Thank you.
Member from the Executive Committee.
Yeah. Sorry, go for it if you want to.
Okay. I guess I would just say that I think this, like the sentiment, like I can really appreciate the sentiment of that. I think like democratizing smooth communications is definitely like a value that we should strive towards. I don't see it as being practical in the sense that like SMU makes at least one post per day, oftentimes more than that, across multiple platforms. And then there's also the listserv and the like any statement that is put out. Like SMU produces a lot of communication content. And I don't know that it's fully realistic that all of that can be productively discussed by Legislative Council. I would also say that in terms of flagging posts, I don't see that completely eliminating the problem. I'd say that as a political organization and like as the like pillar leadership pillar stipulates, like we are a political organization, we have to take stances. We have to take political stances, and there are always going to be members of our membership that don't agree with the political stances that are being taken. That being said, we still have our mandates. And I think in operating within those mandates, of course, like there are always going to be instances of controversy. I think like it looks like it happens at least once a year. That being said, I don't know if deliberating every social media post or communication material by Legislative Council is going to be a productive way of solving that. I also think that like in terms of flagging posts, it becomes really difficult then in deciding like who flags these posts, like what is a like justifiable reason for flagging a post, like what warrants Legislative Council's attention. And I think it introduces a lot of logistical problems that maybe aren't necessarily warranted. But that I guess is just my personal opinion.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Daryanani.
Oh, that was previously, I already asked my question.
Oh,
Thank you.
all right, my apologies. Councillor Reid, is this a new one?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With regard to the notion of SMU needing to take political stances, I'm specifically concerned with the level of the degree to which those posting and reposting these statements are truly informed about the subjects, with particular respect to the apparent speculation made in the statement that a quote unquote second Armenian genocide. Excuse me, that is not an actual quote, but essentially speculating that a ethnic cleansing could happen once again in Armenia is an extremely strong statement to make, and I think requires a larger degree of fact checking than is shown in the what seems to be like a reposting of this statement. And coming off of that, my question is, what has the SMU Executive Council learned with specific respect, to seeking out both the actual facts and objective truths of a situation beyond simply reposting what a political student body would say?
All right, thank you very much. We're going to note that the time has been exhausted. So in order to ensure that Councillor Reid's question has been answered, can we have an extension on question period, please?
Point of personal privilege.
Senator Daryanani.
I just wish to clarify whether the question just asked is in some way leading to a certain side in some way. Like, does it qualify as what was previously retracted from the statement?
I'll ask Senator Reid, Councillor Can you repeat your question?
With it wasn't specifically with respect to partisanship so much as the level of information that is going behind the reposting of these statements. My specific concern was with the portion of the statement stating that the Armenian situation is facing a specific is facing a renewed threat of ethnic cleansing, which I think is a statement that requires a high degree of geopolitical analysis to make, and it doesn't strike me that that has gone on here. Execs may correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so seeing as though there is no, is there an inherent question within that, Councillor Reed?
Yes, my question is, what has the SMU exec taken away from that, and do they believe, with specific regards to going forward, that that self-information needs to play a role in these statements?
All right, we'll have an extension. We'll still need an extension. So can I have an extension? We'll permit that
So
question.
moved for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wan. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the 2-minute extension has been granted, and I will look to an executive to reply.
I can take it.
Okay, VP University Affairs.
Right. I guess with reference to fact checking, we have received a lot of commentary regarding like the need to fact check our information, which of course, we respect the importance of ensuring if we're communicating if we're presenting anything as objective fact, then I think it is important to research that. And all of our communications are of course vetted not only by the executive committee, but also by upper management and our communications department. And in this case, the executive committee was of the opinion that we agreed with the statement presented by the McGill Armenian Students Association and presented it as such. I would say that, and this is simply a subjective observation, but I would say at this point, we've been asked to check our facts, but we have not been presented with credible sources refuting any of the, refuting any of what was presented, or that we believed warranted, the post being taken down or retracted. But again, I that's in my personal opinion.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any further individuals with questions at this time, including from members of the gallery if they choose to do so? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 12, a recess. We'll note that because we only have one motion and that motion has yet to be motivated, and it also needs people to volunteer. There's going to be no consent vote for this evening, but we're also going to note that as 2 hours has elapsed since the beginning of Legislative Council, myself and the parliamentarian are permitted to take a 10-minute break. So at this point, we are going to allow all councillors and myself and the parliamentarian for a 15-minute break. Which would mean that council would resume once again at 2021. So you can, as long as you're back at your cameras or back at your laptops by then, enjoy your 15-minute break, everyone. A22. This has been moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by the SMU president, but Councillor Smith, can you please defer to me for motivation?
Madam Speaker, I'd like to defer to the Speaker of Council for motivation in this motion.
All right, thank you very much. And I will allot myself 2 minutes to motivate. I may need an extension. All right, let me just pull this up very quickly. Actually, okay, so this evening, given that we are now moving back in line with the November 2017 Constitution, we now, reflecting that, we now require 4 councillors to sit on the board of directors. For a basic run through, to talk more on SMU training, the board of directors is the highest governing body of the society, and that it's responsible for the well-being, for overseeing the well-being of the corporation. So that is to say all its legal, financial, operational, and human resource matters. Wing, can you move down, please? Yeah, that's perfect. No, up. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of individuals eligible to sit on the board of directors, we're going to note that you at least have to be 18 years old. You also have to be no institution of a regime of protective supervision in your respect or by one of the common causes of extinction of obligations provided for the law should have occurred. So this is to say, if you've ever declared bankrupt, you're ineligible. If you have ever had any issues in terms of that in which you've actually had to claim bankruptcy as well, you may not have been declared mentally incapacitated, so to speak, under by a court of law. As well, you need to possess a Canadian citizenship or a permanent resident status. As well, you cannot be a member at large or an officer, so an executive of the society. With that, we need 4 individuals to put their name forward. We do need 4. So if there's no 4 today, we're going to come back and we're going to keep coming back until 4 people, until we've completed the slate. We're going to basically run through it what we did with committee allocations and the fact that I'll give each of you, assuming that there are more than 4 people wishing to go forward, we'll give you each 2 minutes to speak on why you believe you'd be best suited to serve on board of directors. I'm also here to answer any questions about board of directors because I also am speaker for that. And lastly, we're not going, unlike committee selection, we're not going to allow follow-up questions. We're just going to, we're just ultimately going to pick 4. So can I have all individuals, can you raise all individuals interested, could you please raise your hand and then I'll recognize. Check. So I'm still going to ask you to be honest. That being said, I'm going to check to make sure only 4 names have been selected. I will give you the option if you don't want to vote for 4, if you only won't feel like you are voting for 3, that's perfectly fine. No more than 4, however. If you do vote more than 4, I will ask you to re-vote. I'm going to send it in the chat. Even though we have members of the galleries present, I have made it so that only email addresses with @smu.ca will be eligible to vote. And again, I know we have directors present, but we're going to assume the director who isn't a proxy will not vote. But if you have any questions, please let me know. It should be open now. I'm just All right, 30 more seconds, counselors. Fifteen more seconds. All right, with that, we'll announce the closure of voting. I'm not going to read the amount of votes, but we will note that the 4 counselors that will be sitting on the board of directors are Counselor Collins, Counselor Smith, Counselor Karasik, and Counselor Wan. With that, can someone grant me a 30-second recess so I can just put it into the motion for approval? A motion for a 30-second recess. Thank you very much. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, a 30-second recess has been. All right, thank you very much, everyone. The 4 names have been inputted. Given that this is still a normal legislative council motion, we will participate in question period. So if there's any individuals with questions, you can raise your hand or indicate so via the speaking list at this time. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to ask happened to the
The 2020 Constitution would not be put back in itself. It would perhaps be a modified version of the Constitution with additional amendments or amendments retracted, so to speak. But what would happen is that those individuals, if counselor seats were taken off, those counselors would continue on their term until the end of their term. So even
Is it just me, or has the cut out
no,
for
it's
everyone?
not just you. I can see. I can.
Yeah,
okay. Sounds good. I'm just going to take over for the meanwhile. Councillor Wan, as the speaker was in the middle of answering your question, we're just going to delay until she comes back. Okay.
Motion for 2 minutes recess.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll take that. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And is there any opposition to a 2-minute recess? Okay, hearing none, we're going to have a 2-minute recess until 20:49. Thank you.
Yeah, so to sum things up, nothing would be different. You'd still complete your full term. It would just take effect immediately. You would be the last, assuming that we would move forward with no counselor representation on board. You would be the last counselors to sit on board, and we just move forward. But your terms wouldn't be cut short.
Point of information, I think.
Yep, SMU president.
That would depend on the MOA that's concluded with McGill, because we would need to amend it accordingly if we conclude a new MOA with McGill, so that we're not in violation of that either. So it would depend on that as well. But besides that, what the speaker said is correct.
Thank you very much, SMU president. We'll give everyone one more minute. Just going to remind all of you to please vote. We're still below quorum, and I can't close voting until we've hit quorum. And I don't want to single you out, so if you can vote sooner rather than later, thank you.
Point of inquiry.
Councillor Elzamar?
Yes, where exactly can we find? I can't seem to find the.
It's in the.
I'm sorry.
Did you find it? Oh, it's in the voting. So when you go to your drive, the shared drive for Legislative Council, and you hit the 2020 to 2021 folder, and then you click the folder for the 2020-10-22. Within that folder, there is there is a voting directions form, and within that, there's the link to vote on this form.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah. Again, we haven't yet hit quorum. I'm going to start listing the people who I can see on participants who haven't voted. So please vote. We'll give everyone 30 more seconds. All right, we'll announce the closure of voting with 19 in favor and 0 opposed and 2 abstentions. The motion is approved. Moving on to item 15, reports by committees. We have 3 reports this evening. We are going to begin with the report with item 15A, report by the executive committee. So SSMU president to report.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, there were, I guess, a few approvals since last legislative council. So we're looking into leasing a vehicle to assist Midnight Kitchen with transportation. There was a motion to hire the communications manager as well as eating disorder campaign coordinator. We purchased a survey subscription, and then the rest were either hirings for SACOMs or approval of minutes, as well as like extension of contract hours. So if anyone has any questions, let me know.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the report of the executive committee? Seeing none, we'll move on with item 15B, reports from the services committee. So services representative, Councillor Morali.
All right, hi. So this is our first full year for the services committee. We haven't had our first meeting yet because I had to be elected, and we just decided the end of October. So we have our first full meeting next week. We're just gonna be talking about the move into this new building, how the pandemic has impacted different services, and how the services can work together to support each other. Does anyone have any questions about the committee?
Are there any questions on the report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 15C, report by the funding committee. Report by the funding committee, Wing. So we can, it's fine. Yeah, VP Finance, you can take it away.
For sure. Do you want me to share my screen or do you want me just to read through it?
Yeah, you can share your screen. I will just grant you, Wing, if you can just stop sharing, and then VP Finance can.
Okay. Cool. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I want to do, percent. Cool. All right, yeah, so these are the funding applications since the last legislative council. So there are 3 of them, starting with Society. So this application was for all club expenses, including a quiz game show, a tea delivery service, and winter study session snacks. And this partial approval reflects the cost of the quiz game and the tea delivery service only, as the certainty of in-person events is unknown. Moving on to the Chemical Engineering Student Society. So this application was for the Canadian Chemical Engineering Conference. So the CHES is sending 20 students virtually to attend workshops, compete in events, and see inside important chemical engineering research that is currently taking place. The partial approval reflects the fall deficit of the CHES. And lastly, McGill students for geriatric health. This application was for 5 Starbucks gift cards with $10 each for 5 panelists in a career day panel put together by the McGill Students for Geriatric Health Club. Students have the opportunity to ask questions to 5 professionals in the field, and the gift cards are a thank you for participation for the panelists. Those are the 3 funding applications that
All right, thank you very much. Parliamentarian, if you want to resume sharing your screen, you can. Given that we have to approve the report of the funding committee, can we have a motion to do so?
Motion to approve the report of the funding committee.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Daryanani.
Yeah, motion to do so by unanimous consent.
All right, thank you very much. Can we have a second? Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Is there any opposition? Recognizing none, the report of the funding committee has been approved.
Can I just in 1 second? VP Finance, can you send me a copy of that? Because we will need to watermark the actual document.
Yep. I think I sent you an email a few minutes ago, but I can send it.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the reports by representatives. So we'll begin with the report. Can you pull up the agenda? I just can't, I think. Councillor Bullhose Education. So we received an email that Councillor Bullhose is unable to make it. However, reports are typically only allowed to be postponed once. So councillors have a choice. They can either choose to postpone it for next legislative council with the intention that, given that it is now 3 councils overdue, so to speak, it would be moved to the front of the agenda so we can ensure that it's presented, or we can take it away and the Councillor Bullhose will not present the semester. So I'll take a motion for either or. It'd be a suspension of the rules regardless. So
I'd like to motion for the former.
all right, thank you very much. Can I have a second? Just to remind, this would mean to postpone, to suspend the rules, to postpone it yet again. Senator Daryanani.
Yeah, I have a different motion. Motion to mandate all councillors to simply read the motion and right now for like 1 minute. Is that in order?
We're going to, well, first make it amenable. Councillor Wan, would you be amenable? You don't have to be, you can, it doesn't matter.
Yes, that is a friendly amendment.
All right, with that, we'll have a second.
I just have a question just before that. Was the absences prior, including the one today, all excused?
I believe so. I believe they were like permanent departures. So Councillor Bullhose was present.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Had to leave
I keep my motion.
Okay. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, we'll grant you a 1 minute recess so that you may read the report of the education representative. All right, with the 1 minute, elapsing, we will move on to reports by councillors. So we'll move on to item 16B, report by Councillor Coonson. So just give us 1 moment to open it. All right, Councillor Coonson.
Yeah. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Minelou Koens-Rolans. I'm one of the 2 management representatives on the council at this time. So in terms of what's been happening in the management faculty, considering that this is our very first report, online Frosh went well. It did have an impact on how much involvement we received. in the different clubs, so it was considered a success. We also moved our clubs and activities night online, and we released the full involvement package at the start of October, which is closing tonight. We've also successfully elected our U0 and U1 representatives, and have also onboarded them with the board and the management council in general. All of our portfolios have been operating and setting up under the impression that the winter semester was going to be online. And so that means that most events have been moved to being online. And all of the competitions, for example, that we're involved in have also been transitioned to being partially online, though some of the details are still being defined, so to say, considering that those competitions happen typically in the months of February and March. And then in terms of the Zoom classes, they've generally been going well. We have heard a couple of complaints, and so we've taken action with the VP academics and then some staff from the faculty to resolve those. And then at the bottom of this, I included a notable mention, which is that we overhauled our electoral policy early on during the summer to make sure that we had both male and female or non-male identifying candidates for each position on the board of directors, which was a success, as we saw a lot more non-male involvement this time around for the U0 and U1 positions. Yeah, that would be it for me.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the report of the management representative? Seeing none, we will move on to, I believe, the report of the Counselor Sood.
Thank you, Speaker. Hi, everyone. I'm Shivali. Just wanted to note that the other science reps and we've created a suggestion box that we've posted on the Facebook group and on the listserv. So if any constituents had any comments or questions about certain motions or any SMU-related matters, they could always contact us using those. Concerning the updates, well, I wrote here that the constitutional amendments were going to be presented as a motion yesterday, but we need more time for it to be presented as a motion. There were meetings between the president and the dean and vice dean concerning winter 21 planning, but there's more feedback to come concerning that. Burnside mural plan is going to be presented to even higher up administrators at McGill. So we'll have an answer soon enough concerning that. There's been lots of complaints to the VP academic concerning forward learning. It's not recommended by TLS anymore, but it's still valid, so the teachers could use that if they wanted to. Concerning Frosh, we're still, well, participation was 66% all faculty, which is a bit up from last year, but we can't really compare. Science Games was moved from the first week of January to the second week of May in the hope that COVID regulations would have been lifted by then. This is the budget for the Ambassador Fund is if anyone is going to a science-related conference, they can submit an application form on the SUS website and get refunded. So this is just to pass on the word. And the mental health committees and sustainability committees are active on Instagram now. They're posting advice and whatnot. So their ads are right there. The MBSU has, well, basically some of the departments in science have been planning some activities for Halloween, like the MBSU, the MES, and MISA. They're also doing some sustainability work. Like, for example, the MBSU has created a newsletter, and MISA is presenting an organized lecture series. So yeah, that's all for me for today.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Sood. Are there any questions on the report of the science representative? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of Councillor Karasik.
Just give me 1 second to get set open. All right. So hi everyone. So we had AUS Ledge Council 2 weeks ago, which was a very long council. We had a lot of discussion over remote learning with the Associate Dean. Other than that, there are a number of motions that were passed. We also met just this Tuesday. We had a lot of discussion over the proposed budget, which included the issue of that we discussed earlier regarding potential remuneration of counselors, as well as passed a number of motions. In addition to that, CCRC had its first meeting recently. So we, well, recently-ish, we had another one coming up tomorrow. No bomb meeting quite yet, but it should be happening soon. We got in touch. Thanks, in fact, to Chip on that. Recently, we, myself, and a number of the other arts executives met with the Dean of Arts, as well as a number of other members of the Arts Admin to discuss further issues in remote learning, stuff regarding laptop lending program, and also potentially gaining access to the Leacock building so we can actually deal with locker issues. And then finally, there was an Arts Faculty Council meeting last Tuesday. Fairly uneventful. It was a lot of announcements, but nonetheless, something that's definitely important to mention. And yeah, I stand for questions.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Karasik. Are there any questions on the report of the arts representative? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 16E, reports by the club's representative, Councillor Awan.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'll just introduce myself first again. My name is Hussein. I use he, him pronouns. As I mentioned, I'm a third year. I'm a U2 in international development. Like I said before, I'm involved with various departmental student associations and also with the TMA, which is one of the 3 Muslim student clubs on campus. Yeah, I was just elected to this role a couple of weeks ago. And sort of because of that, just because our elections were at the start of this term, the clubs committees started meeting pretty recently. So we met twice so far this year. On October 12th and October 19th, we're meeting for an hour every week on Mondays. And so sort of all of the new members of the committee, now that it's been populated, were brought up to speed on student group processes. First of all, just how we evaluate club status applications, how the sanctioning procedures work, stuff like that. And then we began reviewing some of the interim status applications. So far, we haven't moved on to full status applications or constitutional amendments, but we're going to be doing that over the coming weeks. So we've either approved or given recommendations for a couple of interim status clubs, like, for example, McGill Students for UNHCR, Operation Smile McGill, the Multi-Ethnic Alliance, and others. So yeah, some of these have been approved, others have not. We also discussed revising the scale of the scoring rubric for full status and interim status applications, just to give ourselves a bit more flexibility within the 1 to 5 scale that's there right now. So we'll potentially be bringing a motion to that effect to Ledge Council sometime in the near future. And then, yeah, lastly, in regards to constituent feedback, so I've heard from a few clubs, just a few different points regarding the differences to this year. So clubs generally gave positive feedback to SMU training this year, just in that it was more accessible. It was delivered online, and also there's 3 separate days. So there was generally a good reaction to that, and myself and Councillor Al-Zamar, the other clubs rep, will probably be discussing the potential of keeping this format in the future with maybe the VP Student Life, pardon me. Other clubs had reservations regarding late access to club bank accounts this year. I think just Some clubs only received access like a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. But now I think that's resolved. Clubs have access to their bank accounts now. Also, other clubs were somewhat frustrated by, I think this also is a result of COVID, by the lack of movement on transactions from past years due to a backup in accounting, but discussions are ongoing with the funding commissioner in that regard. So yeah, that's about it. You can send feedback at those 2 emails noted at the bottom to myself or Councillor Elzamar. And yeah, also just because clubs oftentimes don't know of our existence, feel free to notify them that we're here to represent their concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Awan. Are there any questions on the report? Seeing none, we'll move on. Parliamentarian can move back. I don't have the agenda. Thank you very much. We'll move forward with the report of the athletics representative.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hey guys, my name's James. I'm the athletics rep this year. Looking forward to working with you guys. So I'm gonna keep this quick. Firstly, we've been having weekly varsity council meetings since the beginning of summer, and they're really just ways that try to keep the varsity community involved in the state of athletics. We're going to bring on Stephanie Malley next week. She's the Senior Communication Director for McGill Athletics, and we're going to talk with her about how to continue to market the image. Obviously, there's a major issue right now in the sense that athletics has no product to put out to its constituents, as most of the seasons have been canceled. So, and I'll get to that later. But on a lighter note, we had varsity bonding last week. It was successful. We had about 40 or 50 athletes come in and join. We incentivized it with Challenge Cup points, which basically like ties us in with the community. It lets us form partnerships with local businesses that we can reward Challenge Cup point victors with gift cards to their shops and whatnot. And then, so right now we're looking at coordinating a community outreach event with a senior citizen center. So I will keep you all posted on that. Now, the Student Athletes Council, which is a separate from the Varsity Council, it represents both varsity and recreational athletes for any of those that are interested. We submitted 4 names to the Students Athlete Council for members to be ratified by their legislative body. And so that's going to work directly with the Director of Athletics and some varsity representatives. And then it's also going to send students to the McGill Athletics and Recreation Advisory Board, which works with all the higher level McGill brass. They actually had a meeting, if we could scroll down, on the 22nd. And the biggest point right now in athletics is they're facing major revenue issues. There was no, obviously there was no athletics improvement fee in the last referendum due to the moratorium on fees. The fall athletics fee was cut in half. And there's no Canadian football season this season, which is going to pretty much remove most of the revenue that was going to be expected from Percival Molson Stadium. So athletics is in a state of kind of stagnation right now. It's a tough financial time, but they're going to get through it. To compensate for these losses in revenue, they're going to stop the upgrades to Molson Stadium. They're not going to repair any office space. And they're also not going to buy new Zambonis for the hockey team. So that's what they're looking at right now. Also, just more applicable to all students, the sports med clinic is continuing to be updated. So if you ever have an injury in the gym, or if you ever have any sort of fitness related health incident, the health clinic is a great option. It is not outfitted right now for COVID-19 testing. It's been a very common question that we've gotten from the athletic community. If they can get a test in the McGill Athletics sports medicine facility, you cannot. And then regarding the name change, I'm sure we all remember the old McGill mascot was dropped 2 years ago now. So we are still waiting on a final decision on the name, and it's been a very frustrating process, but we will continue to wait. I've heard that the name change committee has come up with a final recommendation, and now it just has to pass through the proper McGill bodies. Overall, McGill Athletics is still offering online classes with the closure of the gym right now, and I encourage you guys to look into that. It's obviously good for physical and mental health. And it's also very important that when you do sign up for the events that are still available in McGill Athletics, to follow all the necessary COVID procedures. And overall, McGill Athletics just wants to let all the SMU members know that they're here for y'all, and that they look forward to getting back to a normal pace of operations. In terms of team news, the McGill Gives campaign this summer was a massive success. It got a lot of athletes involved in whatever communities they're from, and donating clothes and food. On a sadder side of things, U Sports announced that all winter championships will be canceled. So that means that there will probably be no varsity championships for any McGill teams this year unless something new opens up. And then obviously fall sports, which have been canceled, are continuing to struggle with the lack of opportunities right now. Men's rugby is raising money for the St. Justine Foundation. If any of y'all are interested in donating it and making them run lots of kilometers, please click on that link. Men's hockey had an alumni win a Stanley Cup ring this year with the Tampa Bay Lightning as the director of hockey operations. And then there are 3 Martlet swimmers right now working across Canada in long-term health facilities fighting the pandemic. So athletics is very proud of them, and we'd like to express that pride. And then if you keep scrolling down, there are some screenshots of the recent bonding session. That's Mathieu Darche, who just won the Stanley Cup. And then that's an example of one of the online workouts that you guys could have access to if you're interested. So thank you very much. Please let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'm an email away. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mulvaney. Are there any questions on the report of the athletics representative? Senator Daryanani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for your report, Councillor Mulvaney. I was just wondering what will happen with respect to the fee, considering that it was brought up at Senate that the fact that the university has the funds to match what would have been collected by students. What is in place with that? Why is the university refusing to give the money? Does the university not care about students?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So basically, the athletics fee itself was cut in half this year, and that's been instituted for a long time. The athletics improvement fee was the one that was shot down due to the moratorium last winter, if I do recall correctly. So the money that McGill allocated to match that athletics improvement fee, and I think VP internal can add to this if they feel the need to. So McGill basically said that they look at student funding as an indicator of student interest, and the lack of student funding in athletics forced them to reallocate those fees to other groups that were also in need of them. So to answer your question, McGill Athletics did not match any fee McGill University did not match any fees to McGill Athletics this year because the fee was not levied. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Just to clarify, if I may, it's the university vice president of university affairs, not the VP internal.
My apologies. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to the VP University Affairs.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Right. So actually, this is I was the one that was in the Senate meeting where they answered that particular question that was raised by, I believe, last year's athletics rep alongside, I believe, Brian Baraga and Madeline Wilson. Anyway, so the answer that was presented in Senate to essentially what happened to these funds that were allocated with the intention of matching SMU funds, but never spent. So we followed up on this, the president and I, with Fabrice LeBeau, the Deputy Provost Student Life and Learning, and got a much more concise answer. In short, all of the funding that was intended for athletics facilities improvement is being redirected towards the university's deficit. Point blank, short answer.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Are there any further questions on the report of the athletics representative? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of Councillor Kirksue, Engineering.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Elif, and I'm a U2 in architecture, and I'm with a minor in structural engineering, and I'm one of the engineering representatives for this year. Basically, we had a previous engineering report by Councillor Reid. Based some kind of like an update on that is we passed the motion regarding the council restructuring plan. So right now we're following that plan. That means SMU reps and senators will lose their right to vote as they're not meant to represent a particular constituency. We will have less people in council. It's basically about 30 people, I believe. Redefine the EUS Council and Board of Governors relationship. We also passed a motion regarding canceling all gatherings other than those approved by McGill faculty access protocols under the purview of EUS and its departmental societies until November for now. But we're looking for an extension of that. We had Dean Eisel in our meeting to voice the concerns and updates on remote learning, as well as accessibility to softwares and medias necessary for departments, our design teams and committees. Had the Board of Governors presentation, members at large are chosen. We're gonna have 2 council members selections for the next council, which is next week on Wednesday, to be to sit on the new board, and that will finalize the Board of Governors for this year. We got fund approvals. Since OAP did not happen, EUS has a smaller budget this year. As some of you may know, OAP is one of the biggest revenues that EUS has. EUS group's fall budgets are also submitted and approved. So every committee, design team, and departmental society has their fall budget and now constructing their winter one. EUS Involvement Restriction Committee members at large selections were also made. So committee is formed, chaired by the EUS Equity Commissioners, which is myself and Yasamam Basri. Funding committee members at large are also selected. They had their meetings, so I believe the student fund is allocated. McGill Engineering Competition is on November 7th and 8th. It's the competition where we choose a delegation to compete at Quebec Engineering Competition, which is canceled this year. So we're going to send the delegation to Canadian Engineering Competition directly. And we're still waiting for the SMU funding to be approved. Main remote for the time being. The next US Council takes place.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Kirksu. Are there any questions on the report? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll next move on to reports by executives, and we'll begin with the report of the president. So SMU president.
Yeah, thank you. I already gave the report earlier for the special referendum that failed to meet quorum, but the part that specifically affects my portfolio is running the fall General Assembly. So I'm going to be planning that in the coming weeks. But everything else was in the other report, which I can also send to the parliamentarian speaker so that can be added to this week's meeting folder for everyone's reference. For advocacy and representation, CAMSR, which is the committee to advise on matters of social responsibility. So that's a subcommittee of the Board of Governors. So they had their first meeting. It didn't last very long. I had circulated a letter on behalf of Divest McGill to CAMSR, which they didn't take too kindly, but they're going to respond directly to Divest. So I'm hoping to have a bit more of an update on that specifically, maybe by next council. CAMSR is also only meeting twice this year, so they met on October 13th, I think it was, and the next meeting's in March. So hopefully, I mean, it's not as much as they met in years past, but hopefully we can still bring this issue up, whether it's at CAMPS or at the Board of Governors more in general, on the issue of divestment. And then, so I met with various Black groups, including the Black Faculty Caucus as well as BSN, and that was in advance of Senate, which occurred this past week. And the reason for that was because the plan to address anti-Black racism was discussed at Senate this past week. I'm sure the Vice President of University Affairs will talk about that in their report. So I'll move on to the sustainability. So I didn't meet with the sustainability commissioners this past week just because it was Thanksgiving, but updates on the sustainability aspect is that the sustainability committee has been formed. So they're looking into having McGill to become a member of PLAN, which is a post-landfill action network with the McGill Office of Sustainability. So that gives anyone with the McGill email access to some really cool sustainability guides. And for the people who aren't as into sustainability, they're going to be looking at getting discounts for sustainable products that clubs can use for their swag and other kinds of material. They're trying to plant a few trees in the Milton Park community, but we just have to see if working during the red zone that's going on in Montreal right now is allowed, and also going over some of the budget to see exactly how much we can contribute to that. Planning events and social media posts for No Waste November, but I hope to have more of an update by next council because I'll be able to meet with them. And then they're also looking into collaborating with Society to have bi-monthly discussions around sustainability while drinking tea. For you crew, we had the presentation earlier by the chair and vice chair. So I don't have too much to update on that, except that Provincial Lobby Week is going to be coming up soon. And then there's also the campaign for the debt-free degree. So you'll be able to get a little bit more information about that soon when we start the campaigning on our social media. There's committee meeting for Bacon. And then, so yeah, the meeting for DIPSO. So there was one meeting with the Deputy Provost of Student Life and Learning. There's also another one with Principal Fortier. So I forgot to include that in the report. But just give me a sec so I can pull up what we discussed at that meeting. Sorry. So basically, yeah. So we discussed the PEQ. So I touched on this a bit before, but basically the new reforms to the PEQ. There were a lot of students who were concerned about the phrasing of it because if they graduate, if they get their grades back, sorry, and their graduation is after December 31st, 2020, it was unclear whether or not they'd be able to apply to the old program. They actually are, so the clarification was given by DIPSL. We also talked about, there's a lot of concerned students for their first years, parents of first years who live in residence, just because a lot of students are moving out and they're concerned for their own child's mental health and well-being. So we tried to come up, or I raised that point to DIPSL, and they responded that there are, mental health initiatives that are there. I don't think that the answer was good enough, so we're going to be looking into ways that we can engage with the residences, specifically the first years that are still remaining in these residences. And also we were talking about the workload that students are facing, but that's an ongoing conversation and it's faculty specific. So we referred me to the town halls that have been occurring through those. Can I get a motion to extend by like 45 seconds?
Extend by 45 seconds.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Can I have a second?
Motion seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mulvaney. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, 45-second extension granted.
Great, thank you. And so, yeah, so that was what happened with DIPSL. If anyone has anything that they want to raise, either to Principal Fortier yourself or to Deputy Provost, definitely let myself or the Vice President of University Affairs know, because we have standing meetings with him. Lastly, or not lastly, but before I jump to the Salt Fed, if anyone wants Principal Fortier to join a legislative council session, for 15 minutes or whatever it is, so you can ask her questions, maybe do like, a Zoom picture all together. She's more than willing to do so, but I wanted to run that by council to see if that's something that everyone's in favor of. This be an opportunity for you to engage with the principal, just because it's a little bit more difficult this year since things are not in person. So she said that she's willing to do that, just let her know. So that's something that's available. And lastly, for Salt Fed, so I sit on the campaign for McGill. So it launched on, I think, October 13th, and we've had 2 events that are ongoing right now. So there's a 5K to 10K virtual walk or run that students can participate in, as well as I want to say it's a yoga class, but I will confirm that via email. And then the last thing isn't on my report, but you were all, I think the speaker sent everyone a SMU hoodie interest form. So if everyone could maybe fill it out by next week, and then I'll look into moving forward with that so that we can get SMU hoodies this year. That's it for me. Thank you. If anyone has any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the report of the SMU president, Senator Darianani?
Thank you. I'd actually like to move a motion to suspend the standing rules to have a poll on whether we want Principal Fortier to join the council. That's in order.
We don't have to suspend the standing rules, but we can just suspend. But yeah, we'll just listen to suspend the rules. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, I'm just going to launch a quick Zoom poll, everyone. Just give me like 15 seconds.
Can I also just get 30 more seconds on my report? There's one important point that I forgot to address.
Okay, Senator Darianani, can you just extend them?
Yes, in order. Oh, I mean, I motion.
That's very much in order. Can we have a second for a 30-second extension?
Seconded.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Wong. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, 30-minute extension has been granted.
Yeah, so I ran on, part of the platform I ran on was implementing a 5-year plan. I wanted to get this run by or approved or brought to legislative council rather for semester, seeing as we only have 3 councils left. I'll be bringing it next week for a discussion point, and then it'll be brought as a notice of motion and then to be voted on. So the next 3 councils we can expect to discuss this, but it's just to get councilor input next week for the discussion point, so that I have 2 weeks to put in all of the feedback, and then it'll be brought as a notice of motion and then as a vote. So if anyone wants to look at it before next council where we discuss it, just send me an email and I'll be happy to send over what I have so far. But thank you for that extension.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. President. The poll has been launched. All right, we'll announce the closure of voting in 10 seconds. All right, with 17 in favor, 1 opposed, and 6 abstentions, the motion is approved. So SSMU President, if you want to communicate that accordingly, you can do so. We'll move on to the report of the Vice President, University Affairs. So VP University Affairs.
Hello, everyone. So Senate activity. We had a September Senate meeting yesterday. Some notable agenda items. Most importantly, McGill's action plan to address anti-Black racism. That was actually a somewhat productive discussion. We got a lot of feedback from faculty that was really interesting, and I really hope McGill takes our input to heart. There's updated standing rules now for Senate. Also, the Dean of Students was announced, if you weren't aware. It is Professor Robin Peach, who is the Associate Dean of Postgraduate Studies, I believe. So, in steering, I requested speaking rights so that BSN could speak on the action plan at Senate. Those were denied because, in the opinion of administration, BSN does not have expertise in the subject area. Thought I'd mention that. University advocacy, we attended the TLS forum on remote delivery. That was productive. I'm excited. I saw a lot of other people, some of them here that were also there. That was nice. We met with Principal Fortier. That was interesting. One important development is that administration is somewhat open to the idea of renaming some of the buildings on campus. That could be a part of the McGill history project in the action plan, so that's cool. USAP meetings are ongoing. We're currently on to section 1. If anyone wants updates on the USAP, let me know. I also attended a JBSC subcommittee on queer people meeting to update them on our preferred names use project. It is currently undergoing graphic design. I promise it is almost there. For academic racism, right now I'm working with the ASA on a Senate question regarding the removal of an emeritus designation. For Senate caucus, the nursing senator has finally been elected and onboarded. Yay, we are very close to having a full Senate caucus. I'm very excited about that. We've also compiled the senator's projects and faculty-specific COVID-19 updates. We also invited BSN to have a discussion on the action plan, so that was cool. For bacon, front runners have been selected for the names. That is really exciting. We're going to continue deliberating and consulting, however, until the winter referendum period. For employment equity, as we've done, the project is ongoing. It's currently delayed while we figure out deal with some logistical concerns, and also and then the project is necessary to reflect everything that was brought up in this discussion, which was very helpful. Thank you. For harm reduction, VPSL, the PTOT senator, and the AMU's VP floor fellow, we're all working together. Essentially, we're planning a policy on harm reduction with some mandates for advocacy and operational, implementation of harm reduction. We're also considering a special researcher position. For equity infrastructure, my amendment was finally ratified. That was great. Back hiring is still ongoing, but the Black Affairs Committee is meeting tomorrow for its first meeting. That is cool. The applications are open for equity committee members at large. Unfortunately, none of you can apply for that, but I encourage you to disseminate it amongst your faculty and friends. And the Our Turn Task Force is currently seeking a new chair, so if you feel strongly about that, I encourage you to apply as well. For research and advocacy, special researchers, not a whole lot of updates. USAP report is still out. The SRAC is also attending the USAP working group with me for research infrastructure. I've concluded hiring for the external political researcher. We've also finally approved our Qualtrics subscription, so that should be set up shortly. And we're still talking about setting up an IRB or research committee. For libraries, Library Improvement Fund is currently accepting applications. So they're currently accepting applications. That is great. If you have any ideas for library improvement, please apply. For open educational resources, the promotional campaign is still ongoing. The survey is still out, and we got a shout out in the Tribune, which is very nice. For study hubs, they will remain open. I have received, without a doubt, confirmed from the library that the study hubs will remain open unless, a meteor hits. However, expansion has been halted, and we are continuing to prepare our protocols in case demand picks up during exam season. I completed my report in time. If anyone has questions.
All right, thank you very much, VP University Affairs. Are there any questions on the report of the VP University Affairs? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report of the VP Finance.
Hello, everyone. So I'll start with general finances and accounting. So starting with the finance committee, we had our second meeting on October 20th and discussed tentative plans for the year, which you all heard about earlier in the discussion period. For the audit, so the audit is still ongoing. The auditors right now are generating a report based on the info that we've given them and plan on still finishing by the end of the month. But with that being said, right now there's less pressure on the accounting team, so movement on that end should be back to normal for the most part. And then for fees, we're doing a cash flow overview and budget revision tomorrow all day, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Moving on to clubs and service finances. So for clubs, the virtual banking tokens, club banking is almost entirely online now, or virtual now. Virtual tokens are more accessible and cheaper than physical tokens at $10.20 a year per club versus $50 per token for the physical ones. And then clubs are not being charged for them right now, so that means that they get free tokens. For services, so the budget reviews are still ongoing. With that being said, I've actually completed all of them except for one. And I will also likely do a budget review in winter just to accommodate COVID because times are always changing. For the credit cards, we're in the final stages of